Welcome back to another episode of the Elite Trainer Academy podcast. I want to give you guys insight into what we're building here at Mind Pump because I wish that I had this years ago. I wish that I had somebody within an organization or a company or a brand that I respected and looked up to that could give me the steps that they're taking to build success in their industry, in their field. Many of you know that we started taking on clients one-on-one, personal training clients as Mind Pump about a year ago. So this is still a fairly new part of the business that we've been building and developing. And I've learned a lot throughout that process. And so that's what these episodes are going to be. These are going to be essentially my field notes of what I've learned throughout that process so far, and then what I'm continuing to learn. By no means is this me, the expert or the business guru trying to tell you how you should build your business. Rather, this is just me taking you along the process and the journey of the things that I'm learning. I feel very fortunate to be working with Adam, Sal, Justin, and Doug daily. And so I want to extend that and the things that I'm learning from them to you guys. I want to start with numbers because I'm a numbers person. This gave me a lot of clarity when I started to figure out how to view business in numbers. So hopefully this gives you some clarity in what you have going on with your business. Oftentimes when you listen to business podcasts or you hear people who are ahead of you in some sort of business field, you'll hear them throw around a lot of terminology that you might not be familiar with, like top line, bottom line, LTV. Like you'll hear people throw these words out. And I remember like trying to get into all this and like hearing that and not at all understanding what that is. So I want to talk about those today. And I think this is a really important place to start. Let's talk about some of the numbers that you should be familiar with in your business, the things you need to be tracking. I would guess that the majority of you probably aren't tracking most of these. And so I want you to start tracking these if you're not already. So take notes. Hopefully by the end of this, you have a lot of stuff to implement and start doing. First few metrics or numbers that I think are most important are We'll speak first on kind of a macro level, and then we'll get into what I would consider like the micro level. These are important regardless of the type of business that you have or regardless of the size of your business. If you're just a solopreneur, personal trainer, or if you are just any other industry, or even if you're a personal trainer in a big box gym, a lot of these numbers are going to be relevant. Now, the macro level numbers, if you're in a big box gym, maybe less relevant because, the gym chain will be monitoring and managing these numbers. Regardless, it's really important information to know and understand, especially if you do want to eventually go out on your own. So speaking first on the macro level, we're going to be looking at top line, bottom line, and I'll explain how you figure these out. So top line, bottom line, operating expenses, ad spend, LTV, and CAC. Those are the things that we're going to talk about. I'll tell you right now, like LTV and CAC, we're probably a little bit more advanced, but we'll get into what those are. So starting first with top line, this is your total revenue. It's that simple. Total revenue generated by the business, generated by sales. This is before you're factoring in any sort of expenses or advertising spend or cost to deliver. Like if you have employees under you, like that's not factored into this. This is top line. So this is just total money generated by the business. Next would be operating expenses. So what goes into this is anything that it takes for you to operate your business. So this is softwares that you're paying for. This is other businesses that you're paying to help you. If you're driving a car and you have to pay for gas, it's like those are all operating expenses. These are expenses that are required for you to provide your service or to run your business. Ad spend, obviously it's exactly what it sounds like. This is money you're spending on advertising. So if you're in a place where you are running Google ads or you're running Meta ads or paying other people to promote your services, that can even be considered ad spend. A lot of the people listening to this, you're probably personal trainers that are just getting started. You're probably not spending money on ads. That's something we'll actually go into more in depth on another episode because you don't really need to be running ads if you're in that position. So this may or may not be relevant to you, but it's important to understand how that factors into all this. Bottom line. So bottom line, when you hear people talk about that, or you hear people say that term, that's essentially your net income or profit after expenses or taxes. So we take our top line, which is our total revenue, total money generated. You subtract any sort of expenses, taxes, all the things that you have to pay in your business, and then that's your bottom line. So essentially, it's you factor in all the things that you're paying for to deliver your service. Whatever's left over is your bottom line. So essentially, it's your income or your profit. It's the profit of the business. Now, LTV and CAC, these are, if you're just starting out, not super relevant, but it's important to start to become familiar with this. But if you've been in the game for a little while and you're wanting to take your business to the next level, it is really important to understand these. So LTV is your lifetime value usually this is in terms of customers, lifetime value of a customer. So essentially this is when somebody spends money on your services or products over the course of their lifetime with you, how much are they spending? So if you're selling something that is, say, $100, and on average, somebody is only buying from you one time, then LTV is $100. Let's say you have a customer that buys from you 10 times. $100 product, they buy it from you 10 times. The LTV of that customer is $1,000. So it's the amount of money spent from a customer over the course of their lifetime with you. And then you take the average of all your customers, and that gives you your average LTV. This is really important to understand. CAC is your customer acquisition cost. So if you are running advertisements, essentially you take your total marketing expense or your ad spend, the money that you're spending on Google ads, Meta ads, and you divide that by the number of new customers that you acquired in that period. And that's your customer acquisition cost. So just for simple numbers, let's say you spend $1,000 on Google ads and you acquire 10 new customers. Your customer acquisition cost would be $100. So 1,000 divided by the 10 new customers is $100 per customer. So you spend $100 and you get a new customer. That's important to understand, especially if you're trying to scale into advertising with Google ads, Meta ads. It's important to understand how much it costs for you to get a new customer, because then you know how much to budget into your ad spend. It's an average, so it's not going to be like an exact, exactly $100 I spend, I get a customer, but you're looking at the average usually over the course of a month or a few months, depending on obviously the more data you have, the more accurate it's going to be. So a larger timeline is going to give you more pretty accurate data. LTV and CAC, important numbers, but probably not if you're starting out. But it's good to start to become familiar with these things. Now let's talk more on the micro level, and this is really this is the stuff that's, especially for personal trainers, probably one of the biggest levers you can pull in your business is knowing these numbers. All right. So this is booking percentage, show percentage, close percentage, average dollar per sale, and resign percentage. So this is extremely important. Booking percentage is when I'm talking to people or I'm trying to put myself out there. Maybe it's literally getting out and talking to people, or maybe it's posting content on social media. I need to know what percentage of those people that I talk to end up booking an appointment with me. That's my booking percentage. So if I talk to 100 people, 10 people book an appointment with me. Of those 100, that's a 10% booking percentage. Again, this is important to know, because then I can start to do the math and reverse engineer how many people I need to talk to close sales. And that's all of these numbers stack that way. And I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. But this is important. So if you're not tracking that, you need to be tracking that. Start tracking how many conversations you're having, how many people you're talking to, because then we can start to get some accurate data, and it'll help us to reverse engineer how many people we need to talk to get a new customer, a new client. Next would be show percentage. So like, let's say we get those 10 people to book an appointment with us. How many of those 10 actually show up to that appointment? Say 7 people out of those 10 show up to our appointment. Then we have a 70% show rate. Okay. Next is close percentage or close rate. Of those 7 people that show up to their appointment, how many of those sign up for my service, for personal training? Let's say 3 people out of those 7 sign up for personal training with me. I don't know the exact number on that, but it's, probably around 40%. It's under 50%. That's my close percentage. Next is my average dollar. So of those 3 people that did sign up with me, what's the average amount that they spent? So let's say one person spent $1,000, one person spent $500, and then another person spent $750. The average of those 3 is going to be $750. That's my average dollar per sale. And then resign percentage. So once I have this person as a customer, as a client, this will kind of vary depending on the structure of your business. If you're doing like paid in full contracts, if you're doing just open-ended subscriptions, the way that you measure this will kind of change. I think for most personal trainers, especially online coaches, you're probably working in set packages. So maybe it's a 3 or a 6 month contract, or if you're doing in-person sessions, maybe it's a 24 session, a 36 session pack, whatever. When the customer or the client reaches the end of that contract, how many of those people are re-signing into some sort of additional contract? That's your re-sign percentage. So let's say I have 10 clients, 5 of them re-sign at the end of their contract. That's a 50% re-sign rate. Okay, let me tell you why these numbers are important. When you're trying to figure out what things you need to do in your business to grow, you have to know these numbers, because you need to know what sort of input is required to reach your goal, to reach the revenue goal that you have. $10,000 a month. Let's say that's my revenue goal. I need to know what's the input to reach that goal. I talk to a lot of trainers that have no concept or no awareness around what actions they need to take to grow their business. They just have some abstract goal of, I want to make more money, or I want to make 6 figures this year. But they don't know what steps need to be taken to actually do that. And so that's what this helps you do. Because if I know my average dollar per sale, I know my close rate, I know my show rate, and I know my booking percentage, then I can start to reverse engineer this. So then I can say, if I have a goal of $10,000 a month, then that means based on my average dollar per sale, I need X amount of sales this month to reach that. Okay, so X amount of sales per month to reach that. And my closing percentage is Z. So then I can start to reverse engineer this into, by the end of this, the total number of people I need to talk to reach my end goal of $10,000 a month. That's why these numbers are so important. Because just saying I want to make $10,000 a month doesn't get you anywhere. We need to know what actions we need to take to be able to generate that. And so that's why we work this all the way back to, how many people do I need to talk to? If you're in a big box gym, how many people I need to talk to is literally like going out on the gym floor and talking to people, meeting new members. If you're in an online setting, maybe it's social media content. So maybe I would measure this as, how many pieces of content do I need to post to get a new appointment booked? I might measure it that way. Point is, you want to work this back to something that is measurable by your input, by your output. Like what things I can actually do, like what actions I can take that will lead to an appointment, which will lead to a show, which will lead to a close, which will lead to, money, dollars. So that's why this stuff's important. Hopefully that's helpful. I think this is a great place to start. If you're not already tracking these numbers, if you're not tracking these percentages, start doing it. Even if it's as simple as writing it down on pen and paper or a Google Sheet. There's a number of different ways that you can track these things. And there are, systems and automations and softwares out there that will help with this. But don't overwhelm yourself with that yet. Like if you need to just start writing it down on pen and paper, do that. We have, if you're using a CRM, a lot of times you can set these CRMs up in a way that will lend itself to tracking data better. So there are ways that you can set up dashboards and different things like that so you can actually see the numbers real time that'll track it for you. If you're not super tech savvy, which a lot of personal trainers just aren't, then just track it on pen and paper or a Google Sheet or something like that. Important thing is that you're tracking these numbers so that way you have something to look at to say, I'm either on track to reaching my revenue goals or I'm not. So hopefully you found this content valuable. If you did, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear feedback and input. You can leave a comment or you can message us on Instagram at Mind Pump Academy, or you can message me on Instagram at Mind Pump Kyle. Also ask if you did find this valuable that you share it with a friend. We're trying to grow this show. We're trying to reach more entrepreneurs and personal trainers who are looking for guidance in growing their business.